Arguably, though, it is Brazil's women, and particularly those of color, who have borne the brunt of the country's indebtedness. They have given up their unborn children. In a generation, the family here has undergone a transformation of almost biblical proportions. 30 years ago, civil society joined with government officials in an orchestrated effort to raise families' incomes in the developing world by reducing the size of their families. Nowhere has the effort been more energized than here in Brazil, where doctors sterilize poor black women with neither their knowledge nor their consent in the hazy hours following childbirth. Employers routinely refuse to hire women who cannot prove that they are infertile, and politicians canvassing for votes during campaign seasons offer free sterilizations, surgical procedures known as tubal ligations, to women in exchange for their votes. In the favelas and on tribal reservations, vans bearing candidates' names and likenesses patrol like ice cream trucks in the weeks before a critical municipal or provincial election, a speaker promising via bullhorn to arrange the procedure for women of voting age if they will cast favorable votes on election day. Government statistics indicate that nearly 1 of every 2 women of childbearing age has been sterilized, but many public health workers and women's groups say the ratio is likely closer to 2/3 among poor women of color. In Brazil's northeast state of Bahia, where the population of blacks is densest, health workers say they have found entire city blocks without a single fertile adult woman. In a 1995 survey that has become infamous among women's organizations here, health workers found that all 85 women living on a small reservation of Guarani Indians in Bahia had been sterilized. In 1980, a Brazilian woman of childbearing age had on average 4 children. By 2003, the number had dropped to half that, one of the steepest declines in history. The rub, of course, is that women lived up to their end of the bargain but got nothing in return from their leveraged economy. Women here are even poorer now than they were in 1980. Feminist groups and civil rights and health organizations complain that racism and not sound development policies propelled the country's sterilization efforts. I really see sterilization as an attempt to exterminate a problem, and that problem is poor people, and in Brazil that means black people, said Katia Helena Bispo, who is black, a teacher, and the former director of a community organization in Pernambués, outside the city of Salvador in northeast Brazil. What is going to happen to black families if more and more women stop having babies? If you want to lift someone out of poverty, what is better, educating them or sterilizing them? Many women say that they later regret their contraceptive choice and that the surgery is costly to reverse. Women's groups and civil rights organizations have staged anti-sterilization protests over the past decade, and in 1997 persuaded lawmakers to pass a law requiring that all women who undergo the procedure must be either 25 years old or have at least 2 children. In the country's northeast, the name and face most associated with free sterilizations is Mauricio Trinidad, a local councilman who campaigned successfully for a seat in that state legislature in 2004. A physician by training, the 43-year-old Trinidad estimated in a 2004 interview that he had arranged as many as 10,000 sterilizations over a political career that had, at the time, spanned more than a decade and 4 campaigns. Neither race nor racism plays any role in his efforts, added Trinidad, who is white. Quite the opposite, he said. Poor women prefer this method. It's simple, it's effective. Wealthy women have always had access to family planning. It's poor people, black people, who don't. He said that his approach has been instrumental to his political success and that his efforts to decrease Brazil's birth rate preceded his first electoral bid. Few women regret their decision to be sterilized, he said, as he grew visibly irritated at the suggestion. Oh, maybe sometimes some woman meets a man and he says he wants to have children and she gets a little upset that she can no longer conceive, Trinidad acknowledged. But if you check back with her in 2 months, the guy has flown the coop, left her high and dry. She's not so sorry then. It is a priority because we live in a country where the birth rate is higher than the gross domestic product, he said. In other words, what grew was the misery. In some areas of Brazil, you will find women with up to 20 children. It's simple math. A woman can provide more easily for 1 child than for 2. Lowering the birth rate gives us an opportunity to increase per capita income. Trinidad arranged a tubal ligation for Rosangela de Jesus Santos in 2001. When I met her 3 years later, she was 33, a widow with a 16-year-old son, a 4th-grade education, and a live-in boyfriend. First, she insisted that she had never regretted her decision to have the procedure. There's a problem with women having more children than they can take care of, she said. As she is unable to provide for her son, he lives with her parents while she searches for work every day without fail, she said. She and her boyfriend had discussed marriage and having a child together. Her tone softened as she talked. What I really need is a job, she said. I go from one place to another all day long, but no one is hiring. That's my number 1 problem. Of her sterilization, she modified her previous assertion. I do regret it a little bit. You don't solve poverty by reducing family size, said Juanita Wernick, the executive director of Criolla, a women's health organization. You solve poverty by expanding the economy through greater educational opportunities, through land reform. You have to create opportunities for women, not restrict them. There are far too many black women who are told that the only effective method of contraception is sterilization. Some people are quite well-meaning, but there is a racist ideology behind it. Bogged down by debt, Lula has left a string of broken promises to Brazil's poor. The poorest 40% own only 1% of the country's arable land, while a wealthy elite, roughly 20% of the population, owns 90%. This is a critical issue. Land reform is perhaps the crucial step in the industrialization process, from the U.S. Homestead Act of 1862 to China's Great Leap Forward in the 1950s.